Hello, my name is Peter Parfitt, and in the next few minutes I'm going to be talking to you about some wood finishing products made by a company called Osmo. Now, a friend of mine recommended I used Osmo Uv Protection oil when I was making this gate, and I brought the gate back in so that you can see it. And I was so impressed with the Osmo oil that I bought then that I wrote to Osmo and I said, look, how about me demoing and reviewing some of your products? And so they've sent me a couple of samples. There's my original stuff there which I bought, but there's a couple of samples they've sent, and I intend to tell you about these in the next few minutes. Now, the way I'm going to go about this is quite simple. The product I bought, which I used on this gate, which is their clear UV protection oil, I'm going to use my gate as the test piece for that. It's already had some weather and it's going to see a bit more this summer, I suspect. I've got a gate post here and I'm going to try the Osmo Oak Transparent Protection Oil on that. It's a UV protection oil. Now, there are two internal products, there's top oil and door oil, and I've got as test pieces a couple of offcuts of oak flooring here. So let's go about it. Now, this is the product that I've used on this gate. It's the Osmo UV Protection, and it's the product number 420, and it is clear satin matte. Now, I applied this with a brush. I applied 2 coats as recommended, and I left it 24 hours between coats. And you can see that it's darkened wood slightly. This is the colour of the original Idigbo which I used on this gate. And here is the same wood where I used just a coating of something very similar to Danish oil. And you can see that when you apply any product, even though it says it's clear, it's going to darken the wood a little. And you should do a test piece in case it's important to you. But you'd expect any wood with virtually any product, particularly one with wax in, to make a very slight change to the external colour. But that's the gate. I'm going to put it back up, and it's going to be in the weather now for several weeks. It's had several weeks of weather, in fact several months of weather already, ranging from heavy rain to very strong sunlight. And it looks exactly the same, it feels exactly the same as it did when it went out there. So I'm very pleased with the Osmo oil that I bought 3 months ago. Now, on this gate post we're going to use the Osmo UV Protection 425 Oak Transparent. Now, it's got a very slight pigmentation in it, very, very slight indeed, but more importantly it's got the UV protection and the antifungal ingredients to help preserve anything that's going to be outside in the wind, rain and weather. And I'm going to use it on this post. Now, the very first time you open a tin of Osmo oil, as I did when I bought the clear finish which I used on the gate, was that you notice that the tin is lined with plastic. So that means that when you've finished applying your coat of Osmo oil and you put the tin back on the shelf, when you come to use it again next year or in 5 years' time or whenever it might be, that tin will not have rusted away. That product will be still uncontaminated by the rusting can. So that is a great feature, and it really was something that impressed me from the word go. So I'm going to apply this now. I'm not going to film the whole thing, and you'll just see how I get on. Now, I'm just using an ordinary bristle brush to apply this. Nothing special about the brush at all. And I'm giving it just a reasonably generous coating, but I'm not slapping it on really thick. Now, one of the things you notice when you use Osmo oil for the first time, it feels as it's brushing on as though it's slightly thick. It's a little bit like trying to spread olive oil onto something. But after a couple of brush strokes, you can detect that it's gone into the surface of the wood, and you can see that it goes on nice and evenly. Now, that went on very easily and only took a few minutes, so it's easy to apply. And I'm now going to wash my brush out. Now, I don't have any of the proprietary Osmo brush cleaning stuff. I'm just going to use some white spirit. I clean up the edge of the tin lid. I've cleaned up that as well. and I'm going to put this on very, very carefully and make sure that that's nice and airtight. So that will now go in the cupboard until I need it next, and if it's on this post I should think it'll probably be several years from now. Well, I followed the instructions carefully. After sanding, I've very carefully vacuumed off the surfaces that I'm going to apply the oil to, and we've got door oil and top oil, and so that's this way around. And I've sanded actually down to 240 grit, because the grits I have go from 120 straight to 240, so that's where I ended up. I've got a pair of bristle brushes, again as per Osmo's instructions, and I'm going to put a thin coating on each of these now. It's important that you give the tins a really good shake, it says so in the instructions. So I'm doing that, and I'm going to start with the top oil. And I'm not pouring any out because it's such a small surface. I'm going to do it straight from the tin, and gosh, I can see already the effect that this is having. How interesting. Again, when I make a comparison to other treatments, I would say this feels slightly thicker when it's going on, but as I brush it, it brushes down to the most fine satin surface. Well, that's gone on really easily, and I have done it fairly sparingly, and already I can see that it's built up quite a nice little sheen, and yeah, I'm pleased with that. So let's try the door oil now. Again, really good shake. Just make sure, yes, this is door oil. And again, a bristle brush, and I'm going to apply it sparingly again. So here we go. This actually feels slightly thinner than the top oil. It goes on equally as easy. And again, quite a nice looking sheen. We'll see what that's like when it's dried. Right, I'm going to try a little experiment now. I've got the original tin that I bought of the outdoor UV protection. It's the 420 clear satin matte, and this is what I used on the gate. And I've got here a handle for a pitchfork, and I use a fork to turn my compost. And this fork lives outside all year round, and so I thought, well, why don't I give it a quick treatment with the Osmo. And so here goes, and this will be really interesting because this is a beautiful piece of ash, and the grain on it, I can see, is lovely, but it hasn't been sanded especially well. It's smooth enough to use as a fork handle, but it's not quite as well prepared as the gate that I made. But anyway, this will be interesting to see what it turns out like. Now, I shook the tin vigorously before I started, and I made sure that there was no dust on this piece of ash before I started to apply the Osmo oil. I'm not forgetting the end grain. I expect this one to last more than 5 years, which is all the old one lasted, but then I hadn't treated the old one with Osmo oil or anything else. Now, this isn't going to be a work of art. It's going to be just put somewhere in a corner to dry. Well, let's do a quick progress report, and I'm going to start with this fork with its new ash handle that I've put on. Now, I've given this 2 coats. Now, although I can't tell you how well this is going to stand up to the wind and rain, this fork with its handle are going out there now, and it really is raining here. Well, this is the ash handle on my fork, and it's been out here in the rain now for over a week. In fact, this is the first dry day we've had for a long time. and it looks brilliant. It feels just as smooth as it was before, no discoloration, and it is perfect. Right, this is the piece of oak with the top oil on, and what I've done is I've put some red wine onto the bottom of this wine bottle and stood it there. And there's a couple of drips of wine as well on the surface. I put some ketchup in a blob just there, and those have been there now for about 7 hours. Well, let's have a quick look. I'll take that wine bottle away. Let's give this away. Right. Now, I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but I can see there is not a single trace of where that wine was. Let's clear up the ketchup. And there's absolutely no trace whatsoever. And both have been there for over 7 hours. Right, it's time for me to tell you what I think of these Osmo oils. And I'm going to start with the top oil. Now, you've just seen that demonstration of the wine and the ketchup on this piece of board, and it had been there for 7 hours, in fact a little more than that. And there's absolutely no trace of where it was, nothing whatsoever. So, for me, that is absolutely full marks. I've already told you how impressed I was with the door oil. It's a lovely finish. I haven't splashed it with anything or tested it. It's quite clear it's quite a resilient product. And it's got a lovely finish to it, and I haven't wire-walled this or anything. That's just 2 coats with no sanding in between. So that's quite impressive. Now I'm going to start on the outdoor products with the original one that I purchased over 3 months ago. It's the Osmo UV Protection Clear Satin Matte, and the product code is 420. And this is the one that I showed you on my fork handle. And that's been out in the rain for over a week, and it's doing very well. I think I'd probably have to retreat it every 6 months because it's getting quite a lot of bashing around and wear and tear from being used as a tool. Now, it's also the product that I've used on that small side gate, and I'm showing you some photographs now of it in situ, and it's doing really well. And the close-ups will show, I think, some water droplets even sitting on the surface. And this last 3 months we've had a heck of a lot of rain. We've had some bright sunshine as well. And there's no sign of any deterioration in that side gate whatsoever. I really recommend this Clear Satin Matte UV Protection Oil. Now, the second outdoor product is the Osmo UV Protection Oak Transparent, and its product code is 425. Now, this is what I used on that oak gate post, which is holding up the side gate that I made. And then I've also used this on a 5-bar gate, which had never had any form of treatment or protection in its 18 months since it was put up. And it's starting to look a bit sad. I'm pretty sure the wood underneath is Idigbo, and I think that the one coat that I've applied of this oak transparent has started to revive it. It would benefit from a second coat, but I haven't had the opportunity to do that yet because of the amount of rain we've had. But already it's starting to look much better. Well, that's it now. I think you'll agree with me that the 4 products that I've been testing have been pretty good. I was very impressed with the top oil. After that red wine and ketchup, no stain, no sign of it whatsoever. I'm sorry that the door oil can is a bit bashed. You can blame the delivery driver who dropped it literally at my feet when he arrived in the driveway. So overall, I would say, yep, go and use these products. Follow the manufacturer's instructions, use them as they're recommended, and you will not be disappointed. And I'm certainly going to continue to use their products. It's time for supper now. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.